Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Bartlett, you left me no choice. I must go to the Vault of Souls and open it and unleash a demon.
A demon that can rattle the strongest bullfrog out in the swamp after you release it, I'm sure. Joe Giammatteo.
Today's show will be full of Texas cliches with barnyard overtones.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on May 12th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Bob Carpenter Center in Newark, Delaware, and features Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. It was a cold day in hell last night in Richmond, Virginia, because Wrasslin Raw was throwing some shade on Richmond, Virginia. No, that's a reference to the Cold Day in Hell pay-per-view that we're coming off of just last night. Vader lost to Ken Shamrock. The Bully was forced to submit to a man half his size. Look out, Mike Tyson. Ho ho. Ahmed Johnson got punked by Farouk. Stone Cold Steve Austin almost became the champion, but The Undertaker retained the title. After the video intro, we kicked off this live episode with the Hart Foundation, coming out to a chorus of boos and a crowd full of heat. Bret Hart gave us some great lines putting over the rest of the Hart Foundation, including his lovable brother Owen. Bret Hart says that he is not the bad guy, but he can tell us who is, and first on the list is the fans. When he goes on to mention Stone Cold Steve Austin, the crowd popped for that hard, and that continued into a solid Austin crowd chant. We are really getting there with Austin getting over here. I especially loved when Bret highlighted all of the glittery gold they have there, once again draped all over Owen, right behind Bret's shoulder. And also when he said that there is no guilt or innocence in the WWF anymore. Popped my ass off for that. Bret says he has a big surprise, but when the fans won't stop yelling at him, Bret decides to leave us hanging. And as the Hart Foundation leaves the stage, Brian Pillman uses that crutch to imitate a machine gun mowing down the crowd. Guys, we've noted that the new format has been exceeding expectations recently with these soap opera show openers. I think this is just a continuance of that. Joe, what did you think about tonight's edition?
Well, we started off with the recap of Cold Day in Hell, and again with a Mike Tyson reference. It sounds like a pathetic loser trying to go after the girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Please pay attention to me.
Yeah. So that was pretty pathetic. What I thought was not pathetic was this Hart Foundation promo from Bret Hart. I thought this was pretty good. I think that Bret usually does a pretty good job of leading up to mentioning a top babyface. You know, you mentioned the crowd popping for just the mention of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I think that Bret Hart always does a pretty good job with that. When he mentions their names, he kind of pauses and lets the crowd react. So pretty good stuff here from Bret, and I'm definitely interested in what this surprise is that he has for us.
Yeah, as you stated, Bartlett, a continuation of what we've been getting, and in a good way. This is what's been working for a few weeks now, so it's a good idea to just continue with that trend, and it continues to work. Bret Hart comes out and does another fantastic job of cutting a promo on Austin here, as well as, again, thanking all of his minions. And I, too, just love this trend of draping Owen in all of the gold every week. It's just, I love it, and I hope they continue to do it. And a good way to end this segment. You know, they give us this tease of some big surprise, and then he goats the audience into booing so that he could string us along even longer and deny us the surprise right now. So great job from Bret, as usual.
Yeah, I want to say Owen, he's able to strike this perfect pose behind Brett with his arms out in a T, and he's got a slammy in each fist and 2 belts draped on each arm. And it looks good every time he does it. All right. Well, guys, let's, after that pretty hot start to things, let's see if we can keep it going with our first match of the night. Ahmed Johnson defeats Hunter Hearst Helmsley with China by disqualification in 3 minutes and 54 seconds in a King of the Ring first round qualifier match. I loved China giving a brief side eye to the camera during entrances, almost like she was looking down on us in the angle. It was really great visual there. The crowd still popping for Ahmed Johnson. We noted, talking about this for Cold Day in Hell, that this is the first time he kind of got beat, and I don't think that I thought necessarily that he was going to get, a lukewarm reaction, but there has been zero impact on how over Ahmed Johnson is with the crowd, or at least this crowd. He came in looking like a badass. I mean, he had a mean look on his face, drenched in that baby oil, strutting like he fucking owned the place. It's a good look. And for once, no selling worked here at the start. Ahmed no-selling Hunter's hits and Hunter selling the no-sell like a chicken shit heel was good. I liked what I was seeing in the ring with that. It didn't annoy me or suspend my disbelief in the least bit. What didn't look good, though, was Ahmed putting Hunter up into a military press and then dropping Hunter on his hip instead of his back. Not sure what happened there, but it looked like it was damn painful.
Ahmed Johnson happened.
Yeah. Jerry Lawler said that Ahmed's head looked like a milk dud. That was kind of funny. The crowd popped hard for China, entering the ring with a chair, which is what drew the DQ victory for Ahmed. Hunter and China quickly exited with Ahmed in pursuit. Ahmed caught up with them up at the top of the ramp, and as he and Hunter started to go at it, China dove right into the fray. She was hitting Ahmed, which he completely no-sold, and then she ended up climbing onto his back for a rear chokehold before the officials finally broke everything up. Joe, I thought this was a decent enough match that got 2 things accomplished. First, I thought it was really good at keeping Ahmed front and center for us after his loss. And second, it kept him looking strong. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I think so too. He got the win here. It wasn't, it was because of interference, but he did get the win, which I think was good for him, bouncing back from last night. I was just wondering the whole time, what is China's involvement going to be in this match? Because she has been getting very physical lately with Hunter's opponents. So I was wondering that because Ahmed Johnson is not your average opponent. I mean, he's a gigantic human being. And what is she going to do to get physically involved? So I thought the chair was a good idea, and having her kind of, help chase him down. It sucked that he was not selling her kicks at all. I thought that looked pretty bad, but the chokehold definitely made up for it.
So the first thing I noticed as China and Triple H were making their way to the ring was there was a young adolescent with a sign that said, "China is sexy." And it was written in like a preschooler font. I mean, the kid looked like he was middle school, but his penmanship was something to be desired. The match, I agree, pretty solid out of Ahmed Johnson. This has been 2 matches in a row that weren't terrible, so that's a good trend for Ahmed, even though most of it goes to Hunter. Hunter did a really great job of putting Johnson over in this match. Bartlett, you pointed out some of the chicken shit hill shit at the beginning. It looked really good. He made Ahmed look strong and powerful. The interference, Joe, you're just kind of waiting for it at this point. With Hunter and China coming down, she's going to get involved one way or another. The antics after could have looked a little bit better with Ahmed Johnson selling better, but I thought all around a pretty solid segment for someone that we've, for the most part, aren't all that up on usually.
Yeah, great point there. I mean, it's not like we've been hating on Ahmed Johnson necessarily. We've been poking quite a bit of fun at him, maybe not taking him seriously, because there's quite a bit to not take seriously there with what they're doing with him sometimes. But between last night and tonight, this is a pretty good upward trajectory for the respect for Ahmed Johnson, I guess. And let's continue that upward trajectory of things. After things get cleared out following that match, the glass breaks and the crowd pops. Stone Cold comes out, carrying a crutch, bobbing his head, wearing an Austin 316 shirt. Vince McMahon was there in the ring to interview Austin, which was surprising given that he hasn't been on commentary, and I was a little worried that this meant that Vince was going to climb down from the ring and join commentary afterwards. That did not happen, just to, in case anybody's worrying about it. We did not have Vince McMahon on commentary tonight, so net positive yet again. Vince tries to play up to Austin, but Austin was having none of that. And after chastising McMahon for asking him about it, the point here is that sooner or later, Steve Austin will be the world champion, and you can damn well bet that will come true. The crutch that he was carrying, that's a souvenir from Bret Hart, and if Bret wants it back, he can roll his ass on down there, which got another great pop. Austin goes on to call Bret a liar, calls him a Judas Priest, which I thought was a funny turn of phrase. I'm pretty sure it's just Judas, but hey man, whatever. He also calls him a complete piece of trash. Most of all, though, the Hart Foundation is a snake, and the easiest way to kill a snake is to take off its head, that head being Bret Hart. But Austin wants to have fun with it, and he's going to start with the snake's ass, and that ass is Brian Pillman. Popped my ass off. Austin even goes so far as to make reference to carrying Pillman through the Bush Leagues. A reference to WCW there, and finishes it up by saying that Pillman's ass is his. Suffice it to say, I loved all of this. Ryan, what did you think of it?
Hard not to love this. This is, Stone Cold is finely tuned at this point. Like, he is firing on all cylinders. He is 100% Texas Rattlesnake at this point. And speaking of snakes, that final segment calling Brian Pillman the snake's ass, just absolutely perfect. I don't know how many times Stone Cold squeezed in the word ass here, but I feel like it maybe was the first time Vince said, go ahead, cuss away. Because he was really laying into it here, and this was just prime Stone Cold. If you like or don't like Stone Cold, you're going to love or hate this segment because it was perfectly him.
Yeah, we've come a long way since the Ringmaster days, which were just a year ago.
Yeah.
So that's all I could think of the whole time. He's coming down here with a crutch, not using it for what it's supposed to be used for. He's carrying it as if it's a weapon, and he's power walking down to the ring. Last night he lost. He lost in a championship match, but it did not hurt him at all, obviously. This crowd is reacting to him. They're already yelling his catchphrase because Stone Cold said so. They're all yelling it with him at the end of his interview. So, this is just classic Stone Cold.
Yeah, this was very, very fun to watch. It's so clever, too. Some of the things that we've complained about in the past are how some of the promos fall flat with other lesser talent. But between Austin and Bret Hart, they have just been consistently knocking it out of the park. The promos, the storytelling, the matches, it all just is so consistently good.
Like with Austin, he's like a good comic in that he tells a story and then by the end he brings it back to the beginning. It's perfect. He is a great storyteller and there's not much more to add.
And the perfect analogies too. The head of the snake being Bret Hart and the ass being the goofy Brian Pillman.
Yeah.
I think it's also a testament to the booking. We could say all night about how good these guys are at what they're doing, but ultimately there's McMahon and the Stooges behind the scenes approving it, tweaking it, altering it here and there. And, it's not just Austin and Bret. We were just talking about how Ahmed Johnson lost and still looks good, looks strong, and is on an upward trajectory. 9 months ago, if a superstar had lost a big match, we would have been sitting around saying, I don't care, fuck them. But now they've tweaked all of the booking to where it's all finally heading in good directions. Most of it. I can't really think of much that isn't. It seems like we're kind of tying up the tag team division, getting close to fixing that. But I tell you what, guys, let's test this out. Let's talk about the developmental talent coming up in our next match. Scott Putski defeats Leif Cassidy by pinfall in 4 minutes and 6 seconds. Scott Putski is the son of the Polish Hammer, Ivan Putski, former WWF superstar, a huge talent. We had a great video montage of Putski Sr. leading into this. And I still can't believe we're still with this name on Leif Cassidy. It doesn't fit. It never fit. He's not with Jannetty anymore. There's no gimmick. It's just flapping in the wind. Scott Putski came out after Leif Cassidy, and Scott Putski looks like George of the Jungle's stunt double. Like, that's all I could think of looking at him is like he was Brendan Fraser's stunt double in the 1990s George of the Jungle movie. The action in the ring got going, and the Japanese arm drag that they went through at the start looked like Leif clearly led Scott through it. And the Hurricane Rana that Putski put on Leif looked pretty fucking dangerous. He came pretty close to going straight down on his head there. Leif's double leg powerbomb looked decent, though. And Jim Ross was doing a fantastic job on the call here. He made up for a lot of the deficiencies in the ring. Lawler said, "Ow," watching Putski's enthusiastic suplex that ended up putting Cassidy on his head, which is what got Putski the pin and the 3 count. Cassidy didn't care for the result, though, and while Putski was giving high fives around the ring, Cassidy attacked again, which ended up back in the ring until Putski threw Cassidy out again. After that, though, Cassidy was hitting his fists on the commentary table and shouting that he won, which got some great interactions from Jim Ross. Jim was telling him, "Sure you did. I think somebody needs you in the locker room, and go take a shower." And that's where things ended here. Ryan, I wasn't very impressed with this match or the debut of Scott Putski, but I did really enjoy commentary throughout it. I dare say commentary were the real stars of this segment. What did you think of it?
Well, to give you a hint to how I thought of it, I am going to start with a story about Ivan Putski. So, Ivan Putski, I'm sure you guys probably never saw him wrestle either outside of maybe some videos. He was a little before our time.
Yeah.
But growing up, I had a neighbor down the road from me whose name was Ivan Patterson. I wasn't aware of his last name, but my dad always called him Ivan Putski. Ivan Putski. Ivan Putski. I swear I was 20 years old before I figured out that his name was Ivan Patterson and not Ivan Putski. For years, I thought my neighbor's name was Ivan Putski. I just wanted to add that little tidbit in here because it is probably more exciting than this match was. Scott Putski.
Scott Patterson.
Yeah, Scott Patterson. Part of this match looked like Al Snow in his training days. Like he was in there teaching someone how to wrestle. And that's what this looked like because Scott is not there yet. As JR pointed out, he's got the body. He's in great shape. He looks like a bodybuilder. But the in-ring work, that Hurricanrana was one of the slowest Hurricanranas I've ever seen. It was like it took 10 minutes to proceed. Did either of you notice that Putski's tassels around his boots, I think they took these from Tatanka. They look like Tatanka's turquoise tassels that he used to have around his boots. So if we do see Scott Putski in the ring again, try and look at his boots. But that's about it. I didn't really talk much about the match, but there wasn't much to talk about.
Yeah, too many tassels. Yeah, Putski's in phenomenal shape. I mean, he definitely has the look, and this is much like other debut or new wrestler matches that we see. It's like you said, Ryan, it kind of looks like a wrestling school match. And when you debut a new guy on TV like this, putting him up against Leif Cassidy isn't really, it's not really going to do him any favors because Leif Cassidy is not a jobber. I mean, he kind of is, but he's not. He has zero heat with the crowd, so the crowd isn't going to get behind this new guy because they just don't care. So I don't know. I just didn't think it was a great match. I mean, it was good for the fact that Al Snow is a good technical wrestler, but it's just not going to be very entertaining for anybody.
No.
And Leif Cassidy, at the end there, he kind of shows that Al Snow craziness when he freaks out on JR. So that was kind of cool to see. He almost did not get a chance to do that because he was nearly paralyzed by Scott Putski in the ring. So this match was not very good, but it's a new guy, so I guess we got to give him a little bit of a break there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think we've got around here that could have gone up against him? Like, I was thinking maybe a better choice to really highlight him might have been like Brooklyn Brawler,
Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
Just have Jeff Hardy wrestle 2 matches tonight.
The true jobber treatment.
Why not?
Speaking of jobbers and the true jobber treatment and happiness. I love what we're about to go into, our next match. The Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, defeat PG-13 with the Nation of Domination by pinfall in 2 minutes, and it pleases me greatly to say PG-13 are our Jobbers of the Week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Bartlett. Yes, PG-13 is finally our Jobbers of the Week. JC Ice was born James Crickshanks on July... Hey, I don't name these guys. On July 5th, 1971 in Sydney, Australia, and was trained by his father, Bill Dundee.
Huh.
Wolfie D was born Kelly Warren Wolf on December 7th, 1973 in Nashville, Tennessee, and was trained by Don Lorett. PG-13 was formed in the early 90s after J.C. Ice, then known as Jamie Dundee, turned on his father Bill Dundee, and then transitioned into a white rapper named J.C. Ice and formed the tag team PG-13 with fellow rapper Wolfie D. As PG-13, they would dominate the United States Wrestling Association, winning the USWA tag team belts 15 times from 1993 to 95, losing them to J.C. Ice's father, Bill Dundee, in a loser leaves town match. In September of 95, PG-13 made their WWF debut. However, it was very short-lived, only appearing on 2 shows, one of which they were destroyed by the WWF Tag Team Champs, the Smoking Guns. They then disappeared from WWF television until Survivor Series 1996, when they resurfaced as mostly non-wrestling members of the Nation of Domination. They would torture our ears on a weekly basis with their horrid rapping and terrible gimmick. Thankfully, by June 97, the WWF would come to their senses and release PG-13. But first, they would need to be abandoned by the Nation of Domination and be absolutely humiliated by the Legion of Doom. This will be the last time they are seen on WWF television. Moment of silence, please.
I'm coming day and night.
After leaving the WWF, PG-13 would join ECW to finish out 97, but just like in the WWF, they failed to connect with fans and were sent packing by November of 97, after getting squashed by the Blue World Order's members Supernova and the Blue Meanie. PG-13 then had a very short run at WCW before returning to the Indies for the remainder of their careers, disbanding the team in April of 2000. They would get back together in a few reunion matches. Their last match together was September 1st, 2012, defeating the team of Adam Gotch and Mitch Johnson for the Indiana-based promotion Destination One Wrestling. Both JC Ice and Wolfie D continued to wrestle separately in the Indies, with Wolfie D having the most recent match, wrestling in a Battle Royale on July 31st, 2022 in Nashville, Tennessee. PG-13's team record is 177 wins, 178 losses, and 18 draws, meaning they officially made the cut by 1 loss. PG-13 then, now, and forever are jobbers.
My
Jobbers
God.
in the rap industry, too, I guess.
Yeah.
You didn't have much info on their rap career.
I believe it was non-existent. I was a little bit worried, that they were going to have a winning record after I read that they were 15-time champs, but they squeaked it out.
Well, as terrible as they are, it'd be kind of hard not to, but they came close. Something that I found really interesting about your breakdown there is before the Nation of Domination, so before Survivor Series 97, that time that they spent as a tag team, a lot of parallels with Techno Team 2000 there.
Ooh.
Eric Watts,
son of a
promoter, and, so interesting little tidbits. at least Techno Team 2000 didn't jump the shark into the realm of being go home heat level of hatred and revulsion from Wrasslin Raw.
But they PG-13 did last more than like 2 weeks.
True.
Yeah, there's definitely some nepotism in the nation that is unfortunate, like them. And obviously the connection with Jerry Lawler since they were USWA.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then obviously Crush with his friendship with The Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lots of nepotism ruining
Just
our days.
ruining our lives, yeah.
Well, as a wise man once said, there is no more guilt or innocence in the WWF. In the ring, I was very, 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 very much looking forward to this match. After just seeing the match card and seeing that it was the Legion of Doom that was going to be doing the honors here tonight. But it's so hard to put into words the anticipation going into this. So, in an odd twist here at the start of this, I guess the story was that PG-13 didn't know that they were the opponents, maybe? There was a big hullabaloo made about them not wanting to go, or being surprised by Farouk's suggestion that they go down to the ring. This is a sanctioned match, it was with officials and everything, so it's kind of hard to believe that they hadn't been notified of it, but either way, they tried to bitch out of it. Farouk asserted himself, though, and they went down and participated. Once things got started, at one point, Hawk literally threw Wolfie D across the ring and through the ropes. That's not an exaggeration. He picked him up, and he threw his scrawny ass literally halfway across the ring and through the ropes. This kind of, in the end, became a comedy match, though. Nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't to be taken seriously. Obviously, PG-13 trying to do things and just being comedically outclassed by LOD in every way, shape, and form, just adding insult to injury, or at least that's what I'd like to think. LOD put both members through the Doomsday device, stacked them up there in the ring, one member landing on the other after the move was performed, and then Hawk pinned them both to a nice crowd pop. I popped when the Nation of Domination turned their backs on PG-13 and left without them.
What does it mean?
I got rock hard all over again, just remembering this match. Joe, what did you think of it?
Well, I'll just read my notes exactly how they're written for you guys. I'll start with PG-13 fucking sucks. These guys are basically a comedy act and need to be fired from the nation now. And by the way, I just heard tonight that they're gone. Like, I did not look ahead to see that they were gone.
Yeah.
The double Doomsday device was a bit rushed, but who cares? Bury these guys. The nation appears to be thinning the herd. And that is it. Thank goodness they are leaving forever.
Yeah, this match was very satisfying. The moment that Icy and Wolfie D, when they start throwing those punches, those cartoon punches to the stomach of LOD when they get in the ring, the moment they did that, I knew where this was going and I loved it. And then LOD just unloaded on them, humiliated them, and left their lifeless bodies in the ring to be picked up like trash. I loved it. There's really nothing else to say. Best match in years.
5 stars.
5. Oh my God. I've been waiting for it for so long. Like, I don't know what to do with myself now. It's finally happened. Mm-hmm. My God, I'll sleep better than I have had in quite a long time now.
But you're going to wake up tomorrow without a goal and nothing to live for.
Yes, but the endless possibilities of me learning to like rap again. All right, let's move it along to a WWF commercial. This was an interview with Laura LeBeau, devoted wife. It said devoted wife in the little caption underneath her name. Her fat husband has let himself go and become gross, but he has gotten much sexier now that he has started dancing to Shawn Michaels' music. For the record, we got multiple camera angles of the fat man dancing. After that, Mankind showed up to cut us a promo at the top of the ramp. Mankind previously had attempted to scar The Undertaker, and Mankind is upset because The Undertaker decided to take it out on Unky Paul instead of Mankind. But Uncle Paul is here tonight, and he's a little self-conscious about his appearance, so we should all show him some compassion as Mankind calls out Paul Bearer. And there he comes, like Claude Rains in The Invisible Man, ready to put on an Oscar-worthy performance. He was wrapped up in bandages all over his head to conceal those scars from the scraping procedure. Just his eyes and mouth were exposed.
Sweaty eyes and mouth.
Yeah. Paul Bearer then screeches about the fire and pain, and Paul decides to give Undertaker one more chance to accept Paul's offer of friendship. If the Undertaker doesn't accept the offer, Paul will reveal a secret that was made standing over the gravesite of the Undertaker's parents. Fucking goosebumps. The Undertaker will be in action against Savio Vega next. And we'll also get part 2 of the interview with Dustin Runnels, which is highlighted by a close-up of Dustin's face and a single teardrop running down his cheek from red eyes. After that, a view of the Hart Foundation in the locker room is what took us into the second hour of Raw. And it was a great scene, that group sitting around Brett. Farouk came down after that to be interviewed in-ring by Vince McMahon. Vince's first question was, how does it feel to be #1 contender for the World Wrestling Federation Championship? And I was immediately confused as to how that got decided. Farouk, though, loves it, and he launches into a promo about token blacks in championship positions. But when was the last time a black man was the WWF champion? Nobody feels like a black man is worthy of the belt, but everybody feels like a black man is worthy to wash their car. Popped my ass off. Vince indignantly asks if these comments are racist. And the bottom line there is that
Pardon me, sir.
Wasn't that a racist?
He had to emphasize. This has nothing to do with being black. What's the matter with you?
The bottom line here is that Farouk is done with the old ways, and the new way is to take things into his own hands by any means necessary. By the sounds of things, he will be facing The Undertaker for the championship at the King of the Ring. That was my takeaway. At least it wasn't said that totally clearly, I don't think. And that was the end of this segment. So, some pretty important points to hit here, gentlemen. I enjoyed the hell out of Farouk's promo, and we did get a fat man dancing, but I think the biggest takeaway is that this gave us the first hint of what will go on to be one of the biggest feuds of the Attitude Era, one of the longest-lasting superstars in the WWF, and my goodness, what a taint tickler. Joe, please get us started on this segment.
Well, I'll start with the reality check commercial. I definitely prefer the ones with the kids, not this one. My God, it was bad. Mankind, his promo at the top of the ramp. I wasn't sure where they were going with this, and then Paul actually does show up and says those words to The Undertaker, and I will go ahead and say that we are inserting the tip into quite possibly the greatest wrestling storyline ever told.
Sounds like you might be in the necrophilia.
Yeah, not only is this, one of the best long-standing characters and all that stuff, but I mean, it's up there as maybe the best storyline ever. So that is very exciting, and it's only May, and
yes.
Kane doesn't show up until October, I think. So, I mean, we all know how Kane shows up, but this build-up is what I'm really looking forward to. Farouk being the #1 contender, my guess is that Undertaker just handpicked Ron Simmons to work with. But what a hard-hitting, truthful promo that Farouk cuts here with Vince. And Vince kind of ruins it, but
surprise.
Farouk doesn't break and just, again, delivers that hard-hitting, truthful promo that I just thought was fantastic.
Yeah, the commercial, I could take it or leave it. It wasn't as good as the Stone Cold Kid, but it still was kind of funny. The Mankind Paul Bearer promo, though, I mean, that's the real highlight of this entire segment here. I enjoyed Mankind. He came out and, he kind of turned it on Undertaker, calling him a coward, saying, I'm the one that burnt you, and yet you burnt this helpless fat man instead of going after me, I thought that was a good take for Mankind, but But then when Paul Bearer came out and started talking about the secret while standing over the grave, and, like anyone that watched this, you knew exactly where this storyline's going, and I got an absolute rager after Paul Bearer brought this up, because, we're in for a real treat for the next few months, and then the ultimate reveal of Kane. I'm excited moving forward there. Then Farouk's interview with McMahon. This was great. It played right into the current stable that Farouk's in charge of. Obviously, they're made to look like the Black Panthers here. And so making this statement about how there's never been a black champion before, perfectly in line and just perfectly in this storyline. So even though it's a bit of a head scratcher as to why he's the number one contender, I'll take it, because this was probably Farouk's best promo yet. We've had a couple out of him that were a little bit hard to follow, but this one was clear, concise. It had a point. You knew exactly where it was going. And then Vince McMahon, like any stereotypical person who is oblivious and makes any racist statements, claims the other people are racist. All around, couple good segments, a lot of talking, but good stuff.
Absolutely. I just want to throw it out there on the record. I can't wait, because we're so excited about this. We've given up on the whole contemporary thing, and we've been referencing the future a lot more. And I can't wait to see blonde Paul Bearer utter the line about rootin' and gruntin' with the Undertaker's mama. Do you guys remember that? That is probably one of my single favorite Paul Bearer memories with this whole I'm so fucking excited for this story. Like, you have no idea.
I think, one of the other important pieces that doesn't really get mentioned very often is Mankind's role in this, because I don't know if this would have been as good if Paul was not with Mankind. Like, let's say Paul was with Vader instead of Mankind. I don't know if this would have hit as hard, and been set up as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. These were almost like logical steps in the story. They had so much time for it to play out and to really stretch it and milk it and get it right.
Getting Paul away from Undertaker, you had to do that, and he fits well with Mankind. So it's it just works perfect.
Speaking of, let's go into our next match. The Undertaker defeats Savio Vega with the Nation of Domination by disqualification in approximately 3 minutes and 54 seconds. The match time is approximate, as the bell was rung during the commercial break. I loved the fan in the audience yelling, "The Nation sucks, send them home," at the start of this. And I also loved the fact that just the Undertaker's presence was enough to clear the ring during his entrance. The Undertaker doesn't need a 2x4, Ahmed. We broke to commercial and came back to the match in action with the Undertaker dominating Savio Vega. And Savio was looking great in this, and so was the Undertaker. I loved Lawler calling Savio the setup man for Farouk, setting up people for Farouk to beat. In this match, he's ostensibly setting up and softening up The Undertaker for their championship match at King of the Ring. Good stuff there, pal. The timing here was great too. One of the things that always catches my eye is how quickly a wrestler gets himself into position for the next move and maintains that fluidity in the ring. Savio was always in the exact right place at the right time in this match. We got a great-looking tombstone on Savio, but that drew the Nation into the ring, therefore drawing the disqualification in favor of The Undertaker. I will note here that D'Lo Brown, still unnamed, was still looking great, and he has been playing more and more of a part in things here. He's slowly becoming more unique there in the background. Just the way he's dressing, the way he's acting, the way he's being used, slowly increasing. Farouk whipped The Undertaker with a belt a few times before holding up the title and proclaiming that it would be his, then throwing it in The Undertaker's face as The Undertaker laid there on the ground. Guys, first off, this was a great match, but the thing that I really enjoyed about this was how this new angle, the Nation versus Undertaker and Farouk as the number one contender, it came out of nowhere with almost no setup, and yet it doesn't feel forced at all. I am immediately sold. I want to see more. Ryan, what did you think of this match?
Yeah, they did a really good job of transitioning into this feud, getting us ready for an Undertaker versus Nation. And this was just two veteran wrestlers in a solid wrestling match is really what it was. You know, both these guys know what they're doing, and it shows in the ring. Unfortunately, we missed quite a bit of it. We go to break, and when we come back, you know, it's already we're in the progression for the end of the match already. But there was one move that really stood out to me was they were up against the turnbuckle, and the Undertaker snapmares Vega off the top rope, and it just looked great. He tossed him halfway across the ring, and he just landed right on his back. It was a great visual. Another thing I loved was after the Undertaker landed the choke slam, he doesn't even go for the pin. He immediately just punches Crush in the face, which, you know, anytime Crush gets punched in the face, I'm going to like it. But then the Undertaker lands the tombstone and the expected interference comes in. But the way the Nation attack the Undertaker, and, you know, they didn't completely bury the Undertaker. He fights him off. He sits up once or twice. But finally, by the end, you know, the Nation gets the best of him. So good way to set up this new feud for the Undertaker. And yeah, all around a strong segment and match.
Yeah, I think the reason why it works so well is just, I think Savio is just, you know, one of these unsung heroes from the mid-90s that doesn't have any classic moments, but he's one of those guys. He's just a good henchman for Farouk.
He's a good hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Him and Farouk together, it works, you know. The other clowns, not so much. PG-13, Crush.
Well, I would like to comment. If you notice, PG-13 was not there with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Since they were immediately fired. But yeah, I think that's what really stood out for me is that, okay, we're going to get Farouk and Undertaker at the next pay-per-view, which, yeah, Bartlett, like you said, it came out of nowhere. But when they do stuff like this, it works, and I enjoy watching it.
Yeah, 100% agreed there. So correct me if I'm wrong here, but isn't Savio also a BSK member?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that natural chemistry going into this too. And Joe, something you said tickled my mind quite a bit there. You said, you know, PG-13 got fired. And I was just imagining how funny it would be if LOD were the human resources of the WWF. and they're the ones that do the firing.
Send them on their way, yeah.
Well, it's time for you to go.
They're the ones who, they take the boxes to the desk and say, here, pack your shit.
Well, Goldust, some allegations have been made. Well, guys, after this match, we got the word that Jerry Lawler had a surprise for us next, and we got to hear the ECW entrance music leading us into our next match. Rob Van Dam, with Jerry Lawler, defeats Jeff Hardy by pinfall in 2 minutes and 29 seconds. Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jeff Hardy was a jobber of the week, was he not?
You are absolutely correct. Jeff Hardy was our Jobber of the Week back on our July 3rd, 1995 episode. So way back.
Yeah. Whenever he was but a young man, the age of
17.
13.
Yeah, something. Younger than the kid holding the China sign.
Did not quite look like a John Bon Jovi wannabe yet.
No.
A youth getting pimped out by Gary Sabaw.
Oh.
All right, in the ring here, I fucking love Rob Van Dam. And before the action got started, Rob cut a mini promo there with Jerry Lawler. I popped my ass off. They were officially crowning Van Dam as Mr. Monday Night, which, you know, unrelated to this episode, he goes on to have a gimmick of Mr. Monday Night over in ECW based off of all of the heat that he generates from this appearance. But we'll leave that for maybe some other discussion. Rob then, in the ring, once things got going, almost broke Jeff Hardy's face with a weird flapjack slam. I didn't know what to call that. Rob then did a suicide flip over the ropes, tope suicida, onto Jeff Hardy. Rob cracked his thighs on the top of the crowd barrier. Oof, made me wince.
Ouch.
Yeah. I popped my ass off for the "You Sold Out" crowd chant. You know, take me back to the days of Tatanka, baby. I love it.
Oh, jeez.
And then again, I popped for the 5-star frog splash. RVD ended up hitting that nice corner splash that he does where he kind of like bounces his thighs off the top ropes to flip himself over into a splash. That gets him the pin on the 3 count and ended this segment. Obviously, I am a huge mark for Rob Van Dam. Always have been. But, Joe, in the past, you've stated that back in the 90s, you didn't see as much of ECW as I might have. So I wanted to hear your thoughts first here. What'd you think of this match?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I remember this Mr. Monday Night thing very well from when it actually happened. Now, we've been exposed to ECW through Monday Night Raw a couple times already here in 97, but I'll be honest, I don't remember those at all. But I do remember this, and I said to myself, this guy is ECW? If this guy is ECW, now I'm interested in ECW. Because, the thing about Rob Van Dam, I think that's, unfortunately, I feel like it gets a little bit forgotten, is what a fucking good wrestler he is. I mean,
yes.
He developed into like the stoner gimmick and, just his character developed later on. But this just displays what a fucking good wrestler he is. And Mr. Monday Night, I read in The Observer, this was all obviously Paul Heyman's idea to do this. And you mentioned, he carried that over to ECW. So well done, Paul Heyman. This is a great idea that worked very well for everyone involved. RVD just got all of his shit in. That's what this was meant to be. This is how you debut a new guy with the talent of RVD. This was very well done. Put him in there with a Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy, by the way, it looks like he's gaining a little bit of size. He has the longer hair. He's wearing those half sleeves now. He's starting to look like the Jeff Hardy that we know. So that was cool to see too.
I absolutely loved this. Bartlett, I was kind of with you back growing up. I loved watching ECW Saturday nights. I was one of those troubled teens that would stay up till 2 a.m. on a Friday,
Shut-ins.
Saturday watching this. Yeah. Seeing Rod Van Dam here, I popped my ass off. The moment he started ripping into ECW, calling them a low budget, low talent promotion. And another thing that Rob doesn't get enough credit for is when he's on the mic, he is unique like nobody else. There's nobody that has that tone to him. It's like when he's talking to the audience, it feels extremely authentic, unlike a lot of other wrestlers. It's like he's talking to you, and I don't know how else to really put it, but he has a special way of delivering his promos, and I absolutely love it. And the fans do too. This match is something like we don't see out of anyone currently in the WWF. We have someone like Mark Marrow who may try and do some of this high-flying stuff, but unlike Mark Marrow, Rod Van Dam pulls it off and makes it look great. And Joe, you said, he's just getting all his shit in, but he does, and it all looks good. His 5-star frog splash, all of it. I loved it. And the way the crowd was reacting to it too, with them chanting "You Sold Out" and chanting "Sabu," and just all around great stuff. And what a way to debut someone. I know, unfortunately, it's going to be a bit short-lived. To get a little bit into backstage politics, I guess Van Dam's going to refuse to put over Jesse James. And that's going to be ultimately why he leaves and goes back to ECW, because he was supposed to stay in WWF here after this stint. But because of this refusal to job out to Jesse James, he goes back to ECW, sadly. But we will get him back for some great runs in the future. But I loved everything about this. I was popping my ass off.
You're going to take a heirloom to the dome tonight, pal.
I like I said, huge mark for Rob Van Dam, and this match made me think of nothing but the wrestling professionals in other podcasts who even begrudgingly have to admit that he is, Joe, like you said, a phenomenal wrestler. It gets missed way too often, even Cornette, who generally dislikes, the extreme shit. Mm-hmm. He has gone on the record as saying, I might not have liked all of their booking, but he's a freak. Rob Van Dam is a freak. He can do things and can work a way or a style that nobody else can work. And he knows it, and he does it well. Fantastic to watch.
And stiff but safe.
Yes. Yes. One of the most commonly used phrases in my vocabulary is the phrase, hey man, whatever, directly because of Rob Van Dam in my teenage years. All right, guys, let's keep it moving to part 2 of the Goldust expose. Now that Goldust has been outed, what's next? Dustin just wants to, quote, have fun with this character, end quote, and I hated it. But I did ease up on that because I love Dustin's enthusiasm in this. I believe that really ended up coming through here, and it was genuine. You could see that Dustin Runnels really cares about the business and wants to entertain people and make people happy, and I can't complain about that at all. It ends up bearing out over time. I mean, for God's sakes, Dustin gave us, and to this day continues to give us, his all. But I got a little pulled out of that good feeling by the crying and the pleading for Dusty Rhodes' approval. I'm not saying it's invalid or wrong, but I don't need this type of thing to get him over with me. He's already over with me. I know that's just, personal opinion, but there it is. This was then immediately followed by Jim Ross setting up a promo from The Undertaker up on the Titantron, who politely requested the chance to take this time to address Paul Bearer. And this all sounded great. This sounded like shit The Undertaker would actually say. So many times we've complained about the scriptedness of him and what he says, and, especially since he's gotten the title here. But he responded to Paul Bearer's threats by saying that some things are better off left out of the light of day, and that he will open the vault of souls, unleashing a demon to help him destroy Farouk. Lawler was a bit confused by that, and Jim Ross says it sounds like The Undertaker is going to get some help. So I'm curious to see what happens there, if anything. Joe, I was skeptical before this Goldust documentary, and while I'm sticking with most of my previous critiques that I already gave it, I will say that the first half of this installment was good, but this second half was much better. I'm also happy that we got a promo out of The Undertaker that sounded natural. What did you have on this segment, please?
Yeah, I fucking hate this Goldust interview. I don't understand the purpose of it unless they're planning to completely kill the Goldust character. There's no point. And not only are you doing this to Goldust, but you're doing this to Marlena too, which you're killing 2 characters in one. And why do they want it to be a babyface so much? I don't understand. I don't know where they're going with it, and I don't like it. Undertaker interview was good too, that he basically told Paul Bearer to fuck off, and we're going to get the next piece of that story very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, Joe, I'm in your camp with the Goldust interviews. This shit just doesn't hit with me, I mean, maybe the tear-jerking stuff, maybe that's some people's cup of tea, but kind of misses the mark with me. I don't care about his want of approval from his father. I don't care about who he really is. And to be honest, the only thing I care about is that you are completely crushing kayfabe for me here. And I don't know why. You could have done this in a way that maybe still kind of delivers the emotion they wanted, but not completely destroy the Goldust gimmick. But this shit it's not working for me. The Undertaker promo, though, he did what he needed to do here. He addressed Paul Bearer, saying basically some things are left better buried, and then threatens the nation, saying it sounds like he's going to get some help. When do the Druids come? But I don't know.
The return of the executioner. Well, that immediately led into our final match of the night. The British Bulldog and Owen Hart defeat the Headbangers, the New Blackjacks, and Furnace and LaFawn in a 4-way elimination match in 7 minutes and 18 seconds to retain the WWF Tag Team Championship. This started with all 4 teams in the ring, and as a reminder, any one man can tag in any other man, and that continues until 3 of the teams are eliminated. Phil LaFawn and Owen Hart, they actually looked pretty good at the start of this, but things got a little hairy once one of the Blackjacks got tagged in, and this was then fast and hard to follow. Furnace and LaFawn were the first to be eliminated, pretty quickly too, all things considered. in true jobber status. We broke to commercial then, and during the break, Furnace and LaFawn helped the Headbangers eliminate the new Blackjacks, so this was quickly whittled down to the Headbangers and the champions. The Headbangers did a neat tag chain move in the corner to pin Owen, but Owen got his foot on the rope there. It was a nice little spot. I loved that Mosh was wearing a sundress with Wicked Witch of the East pantyhose underneath it. That was pretty cool. Thrasher was wearing his White Zombie shirt. Ryan, made me think of you.
Mm-hmm.
Commentary got some news that something was happening back in the locker room involving the Hart Foundation, and I'm not sure really where that ended up going. It didn't here in this match, and then the match started to wind down from there. The rules mostly got thrown out of the window in favor of double teaming spots, with all 4 men in the ring for the majority of the remainder of the match until we got to the pin and the 3 count. There's still more to come here, but I wanted to pause to talk about the match here, if you want to call it that. I honestly have no idea what the point of this was at all, other than to maybe give the Blackjacks 2 seconds of screen time. Furnace and LaFawn didn't even get that. While the Headbangers versus Owen and the Bulldog wasn't really bad, it also didn't feel like it was being taken seriously, which I guess is my biggest takeaway for this entire match and still the tag team division. Ryan, were you able to get more out of this than I was?
No, not much. I mean, this is just a continuation of the treatment the tag team division typically gets. We start off as a completely crazy 4-team elimination tag team, and it's just pandemonium in the ring, and very quickly gets whittled down to just 2 teams, which it should have just started as from the beginning, and we get some decent action between the Headbangers and the tag team champs here, but it's pretty short-lived. Everything gets wrapped up relatively quickly, and everyone gets sent home, so I don't have much to talk about other than that unique tag team maneuver that the Headbangers did in the corner to pin Owen, even though he got his foot on the rope. That was a pretty sweet looking tag team move, but everything else was pretty forgettable here.
Yeah, this was trash. I had to scoop the litter box, and JR is trying to explain the rules, and I just don't give a shit about them.
No standing 8 count.
Well, after that, with Owen and the Bulldogs win, the Hart Foundation immediately came into the ring. Brett enjoyed asking the audience there to shut up for a couple of minutes, and it put a big old smile on his face to do so. Brett asked the rest of the Foundation to go back to the dressing room. Everyone there was concerned, but Brett says that he has to be a man and do this himself. Goosebumps already. Brett throws out there that Austin should stay out of the ring area because otherwise the Hart Foundation will tear him to shreds. And after, Joe, what you said about what this situation was in the last week, I almost wondered if that was like a direct, like a veiled instruction, like, hey, just in case stuff gets weird, maybe don't come out right away, something like that. I don't know. Instead, Bret Hart wants that gutless little poser, Shawn Michaels, to come out. And so he does. Shawn comes out dressed to the nines and gets in the ring to very closely stare down at Bret. Bret yells to cut the music because it was hurting his ears, and I fucking popped. Bret says that he hates Shawn's guts and wants to list the reasons why. Shawn then takes his jacket off. And Bret pounces on that, saying that it symbolizes Shawn. He's hot, he's cold, he's back, he's forth. That's Shawn's whole career. And I fucking popped hard. God damn it.
Rager.
Yeah. Bret puts a point to it all by saying Shawn's cocky, prancing attitude is the typical American attitude. Shawn and all the fans think that they're better than everyone. And you could just see the hatred seething in Shawn Michaels' eyes from every camera angle.
As the clock keeps on ticking.
And Bret keeps going. Bret points out. Bret points out getting screwed in the Iron Man match, calls Shawn a self-professed degenerate. Bret points out that Shawn didn't have the guts to face Bret at WrestleMania. And then we got a little graphic at the corner of the screen that usually cues the end of the episode, or at the very least the video feed here on the Cock. And up to this point, Shawn Michaels had not said a word, hadn't even had a microphone in his hand. It looked like we went through what was maybe a commercial break or something, I don't know. There was obviously some clearly lapsed time where there was a cut in the video. But when we came back, Bret was gingerly standing on one leg with the other one kind of lifted in front of his wheelchair, with Shawn about a leg's distance away from him. And within about 3 seconds of coming back, Shawn Michaels lit up Bret Hart with the sweet chin music. You could clearly see and hear the connection. Shawn just cranked Bret in the jaw there, and Bret fell backwards through the wheelchair in what was a fantastic visual. That, of course, drew out the Hart Foundation, who gave Shawn a great chase around the ring, with Pillman, the Anvil, and the Bulldog finally catching him on the ramp, while Owens stayed in the ring with Bret. An Austin chant started up, and just as the Bulldog was military pressing Shawn Michaels and getting ready to throw him off the top of the entryway, out came Steve Austin with the crutch, demolishing the Hart Foundation, freeing Shawn Michaels, blowing the crowd up until officials broke everything up. And our final scenes here were Pillman looking back at Austin, the Hart Foundation huddled around Bret, and Austin running his mouth at all of them as we faded to black. By God, what a barn burner of a finish. I loved every second of it, mostly because it felt pretty damn cathartic to see and hear Bret Hart air all of those grievances straight to Shawn Michaels' face for all of us to witness. Ryan, what did you think about the way that Raw ended tonight?
What a fantastic ending. Bret Hart comes in here and just laying into this gutless little poser. It's great. You could just see on Shawn Michaels' face just how pissed off he is. And obviously, if we're watching this live, we don't know the backstory and the context, but knowing that makes it even better because you're just sitting here knowing Shawn Michaels just wants to fucking kill Bret Hart. And as the seconds tick on, and I even would pause it a couple times, look at the time, and just laugh to myself as Shawn Michaels got a little bit more pissed off. And it worked. The way it ended was still great. I don't know what Shawn Michaels was going to say if he had the opportunity to actually talk, but to me, this works. Bret Hart took up all the time, and then Shawn Michaels just kicks him over the wheelchair. So, Shawn might not be very grateful for what Bret did here, but in the end, I thought it worked beautifully.
Yeah, the unique thing about this Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels feud is that they really do hate each other, but unfortunately, a lot of it got onto TV. I mean,
or fortunately,
Shawn Michaels, or fortunately for the fans, yeah. Shawn Michaels back in February lost his smile and put on that big show to not have to put over Bret Hart. And now Bret Hart purposely goes too long on a promo so that Shawn does not get his moment of glory on TV. So this was kind of an answer to that, I guess. And yeah, unfortunately, after that graphic pops up, none of that stuff aired. They had to show it the following week, and that's unfortunate because not only are you screwing over Shawn Michaels, but you're kind of screwing over Steve Austin and everybody else that was involved. So yeah, that kind of sucks. But I mean, if you watch it now on the cock, it's all fantastic. And it's really unfortunate that these guys just couldn't do business because the way that they could have worked together, we only got like 2 matches out of these guys and really could have done so much more. That kick and the cell flopping over the wheelchair was just so perfect, all of it. So yeah, it was great to see, but also unfortunate that none of it made air.
It's funny that it took this to get us there, but Joe, you've mentioned a couple times about how you look forward to any opportunity to have an interaction between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart because they, legitimately hate each other and it flows through. You can always sense it. And I was always a little resistant to that because, I had that chip on my shoulder about Shawn Michaels and I didn't like him. So I guess you could say maybe I was a Bret Hart guy all along. But this way of highlighting it, this is what brought it home for me and was like, I'm finally I don't give a fuck anymore. I love all of it.
Yeah.
This finally got me there, got me to climax on this feud. All right. Well, guys, as I said, we faded to black. So let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first?
Oh, lots of highlights on this show. But I'm going to go with Rob Van Dam. I thought the Mr. Monday Night was a nice little treat here in the middle of the show, and I loved every second of it. The low light, I'm just going to go with that shitty 4-team elimination tag match, whatever that was. That was just kind of thrown in there for no reason.
My highlight, I really wanted to give it to PG-13 getting humiliated and thrown out of the WWF, but I feel like that would be a disservice to Rod Van Dam, so I gotta give it to Rod Van Dam as well. I was super excited to see him here, and what he did in the ring was fantastic. Low light, I guess if I had to pick one, Joe, I'm going to agree with you there as well and go with the tag team match, but I really want to highlight this was an extremely strong Raw with a lot of good shit. So the low light, but not really that many low lights here.
Yeah, agreed. This was a pretty strong episode, so I kind of felt like I was maybe had to do some nitpicking. Well, it's not really that hard to do some nitpicking with my low light, which was the Scott Putski match. The only thing in this episode that didn't feel like they were trying to give it 100%. Like, it kind of felt half-hearted for me. Even the 4-man tag led into the finish. Speaking of, that was my highlight, this finish with Bret Hart cutting this 10-minute long promo. At least that's what it was on our screens. There's that edited cut part in the middle, but I remember looking at the time slider like you, Ryan, to see how long this was going. This was a 10-minute promo that Bret Hart cut on Shawn Michaels. Up until that point, Rob Van Dam was going to be my highlight, but man, what a way to cap the episode. I loved it. Joseph, do you happen to have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around May 12th, 1997 for us?
I do. The Observer is reporting that Monday Night Raw is going through yet another big change, most likely in August of 1997. There is consideration for a time slot change from 8 to 10 to 9 to 11.
Oh.
So in theory, that will allow the show to be a little more risque.
Yeah.
Dave had some comments on tonight's Monday Night Raw show. He said, aside from Rob Van Dam, there wasn't a bright spot on the show other than the crowd was rabid for most of the show. He says that Scott Putski looked mechanical in the ring and not good, nor did he get over.
True on all accounts.
He said the Goldust interview was not as good as the first segment and came off as even more desperation in trying to salvage his character. He said the Four Corners match was awful. And he's not into the Steve Austin and Bret Hart feud, or I should say he's tired of it, is what it sounds like.
Okay, idiot.
He says Austin's delivery is incredible, but his interviews are getting predictable. Hart's interviews, which have been the best in wrestling for most of this year, but the last 2 weeks have been endless babbling about American scum that lasts too long. So he's kind of getting tired of it, I guess. Some other news, Leif Cassidy has turned in his notice. He also mentions one thing about the Goldust story that I didn't even think of, but what it generated during this time was some rumors that maybe Dusty Rhodes would potentially be returning to WWF. I think that's what some people were thinking that they were going, but Dusty is under contract with WCW for another year, so that is not where they're going with that story. And that is all.
Well, apparently he just really, really wanted his father's love.
Yeah.
How fucking sad. All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most sensational Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on May 19th, 1997, with matches featuring Scott Taylor, Bob Holly, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.